It's known as the world's last Shangri-La, but for a number of its citizens, it's a place where human rights violations take place with impunity. The Royal Kingdom of Bhutan has for centuries been closed to the outside world. In the past decade, tens of thousands of Bhutanese have escaped what they claim to be tyranny, torture, and ethnic cleansing.
They gave us 15 days notice to vacate our houses. If we didn't obey, we would be put in jail.
This is the other face of Bhutan. A tortured political prisoner. Malnourished children. Bhutanese refugees protesting oppression.
There are evidences that these minority ethnic groups in Bhutan belonging to the Nepalese ethnicity were made to leave the country under special circumstances. Psychological terror was created.
In the 1990s, more than 100,000 ethnic Nepalis, or Lhotshampa, were forcibly removed from Bhutan in a systematic ethnic cleansing. The expulsion was motivated by a desire to preserve Bhutan's national identity, said the then King Jigme Singye Wangchuk, and every Bhutanese officials. But what led to the mass exodus of the Lhotshampas, and what were the effects following the atrocities? Is Bhutan really a country they portray themselves as? Or the H in GNH stands for hypocrisy? Well, let's not waste much time, and let's talk about how Bhutan is the world's biggest creator of refugees by per capita. The Lhotshampas, which means southern borderlanders in Dzongkha, were people of Nepalese origin who migrated from Nepal and started to settle in uninhabited areas of southern Bhutan in the 19th century. Now, Bhutan may claim that the Lhotshampa are newcomers to Bhutan. However, people of Nepalese origin have been in Bhutan since 1620, when Newar craftsmen were commissioned to come to and build a stupa in Bhutan. They have been there ever since, settling in southern Bhutan. Now, the expulsion of the Lhotshampas did not happen overnight. As I have mentioned, that it was a systematic ethnic cleansing. The first nail on the coffin was the Bhutan'S Citizenship Acts of 1958. Now, according to this act, any individual who does not possess any official documents before 1958 will not be deemed as a Bhutanese citizen, but as an illegal immigrant. But as many Lhotshampa were given citizenship in 1958, these was a lose situation for them. However, according to human rights groups, even those who could supply the required proof were often evicted.
The issue of actually the people in the camps in Nepal is not a typical refugee issue. It's far more complex. It has its genesis in illegal immigration as far as Bhutan is concerned.
The second nail on the coffin was the 1988 census. Now, in 1988, a census was conducted. However, poorly trained census officials made numerous mistakes in administrating the census, as well as stoking up ethnic tensions. Following the census, more than 100,000 Lhotshampa were evicted with force and fear. The mismanagement of the census resulted in violent protest between the Bhutan People's Party, dominated by the Lhotshampa, and the government, where the Lhotshampas claimed that they have faced violence and ethnic discrimination. The final nail on the coffin was the Bhutan's One Nation, One People policy, where the government placed cultural and linguistic restrictions upon the Lhotshampa, now, according to a report by the UN. The Bhutanese authorities removed assurances of citizenship, forced Buddhism cultural and religious codes on the Hindu and Christian minorities, and used both physical violence and intimidation to evict people belonging to Nepali ethnic groups.
He's a former government official who himself became a refugee. How many political prisoners are there?
At the moment, we have 120 from eastern Bhutan. Most of them are monks. Buddhist monks were arrested during 1997 mass demonstrations in eastern Bhutan. Plus, we have around above 50 southern Bhutanese who are in prison, and they were arrested during mass protest rallies in 1990.
Following the protests, an exclusive census was carried out in the southern districts, with the intention to flush out Nepali-speaking population. Thousands of Nepali Bhutanese were arrested, killed, tortured, and given life sentences. Further disingenuous tactics were used by the government in attempts to manipulate or distort population levels. According to a report, the government forced many evicted people, almost all, to sign the voluntary migration form before leaving the country. The local authorities also seized the documents that people have, which can prove their Bhutanese nationality, to ensure they cannot produce them again in the future. To justify this above statement, Vidyapati Mishra, a managing editor of the Bhutan News Service, whose family was also evicted from Bhutan, wrote to the New York Times, recollecting the horrors of the exodus. "My father was held for 91 days in a small, dank cell," remembers Mishra. "They pressed him down with heavy logs, pierced his fingers with needles, served him urine instead of water. They burned dried chilies in his cell to make breathing unbearable. He agreed eventually to sign what were called voluntary migration forms and was given a week to leave the country our family had inhabited for 4 generations." Almost 40 years have passed since the mass exodus took place. Many displaced, many lost, and many scarred for their entire life. The evicted found their new home in Nepal and live as refugees, people with no identity, but yet an apology is still to be heard from the Kingdom of Bhutan. Yet the ethnic cleansing of Lhotshampa has always been overlooked and underestimated at every stage. The question is Bhutan really the country they portray themselves as? Or it is just a mirage to hide their dark and humiliating past from the world?